Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 6 of Culture Club X, powered by CultureMonkey. I'm your host, Darcy Mehta. CultureMonkey is an AI-powered enterprise employee engagement platform that helps people leaders listen to their employees and enhance workplace cultures. Culture Club X is our global thought leadership forum where global CHROs and people leaders share insights, debate emerging trends, and exchange proven strategies for building thriving, future-ready cultures. Today, we're truly honored to host Shari Chernack, Chief People Officer at Isaacson Miller, a leading executive search firm for the civic sector. Shari, welcome. It's so lovely to have you with us.
Thanks, Darcy. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you. And Shari is also the founder of Palimpsest Advisory and Coaching, where she guides leaders through complex transformation. With over 20 years of experience, she specializes in the sweet spot where people, technology, and strategy meet. She's held leadership roles at Industrious, Nova Logistics, Dell, and advised at Mercer, Korn Ferry, and Deloitte, from Fortune 10 giants to early stage startups. Shari holds an MBA and a BA in history from Yale, and she's an ICF certified executive coach. She's a sought-after speaker on AI adoption, organizational transformation, and the future of work. So, Shari, we're so happy to have you here and to discuss our latest topic, real-time listening and AI sentiment, how upskilling boosts careers, culture, and engagement in 2026. So before we dive in, could you just share a bit about your own leadership journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm getting to the age in life where people are asking me about the arc of my career, which I describe as a few accidents and a few turns that turned out to be the correct ones. As you mentioned, was a history major, so I had no marketable skills except that I could write a sentence, which led me into communications, consulting, and instructional design, and then eventually into human capital consulting. And eventually, based on curiosity and a ton of great exposure and experience that I gained primarily through being a consultant, I really established a place where I love to work, which is at the intersection of people, strategy, and transformation. So that has been what I have spent a lot of my career on, and particularly a lot of my recent career. And I think the opportunity to work as both a consultant and an operator has enriched my experience and my perspective. And I find it very valuable to blend both of those and to bring all of that experience to both my job at Isaacson Miller and to the opportunities that I have to coach and advise executives and teams.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I like what you said, it was a few accidents and turns, but those were meant to be because you never know what you're going to learn from each stage, right? And where it's going to lead you. And hey, I love history too. So it's still a good major.
Yes, me too. I'm still a big proponent of the liberal arts major, though I imagine that is a spicy take in this day and age. But I think once our AI overlords are firmly in place, the ability to think and communicate and bring humanity to all of the things that risk maybe going too far over to the side of machines running everything will be valuable and a differentiator.
Absolutely. I mean, the value of being able to write yourself too and, think for yourself. And that's what us liberal arts majors learn for sure. So, okay, amazing. Well, let's jump into some of our questions.
Great.
First one I've got for you is, why do most learning programs fail to move the engagement needle?
A lot of learning programs are designed around what the organization wants employees to know, not around what employees actually want to learn or what they feel they need to grow. So people can sometimes see that a program exists primarily to serve the company's agenda. And that can lead them to disengage, especially if they are not aligned with that, or if it doesn't align with what they feel they need to grow and be successful in their career, in their role. And then the other piece is relevance. So even well-intentioned programs and ones that can be well designed for the majority of employees can miss in some cases because they're built for an imaginary average employee or for the median employee, not for the actual person sitting in the seat. And I think for learning to really connect with engagement and move the engagement needle, it has to feel like it is working for the employee, like it's resonating, like it's giving them something that they want. And a lot of learning programs are not always designed for that. And then the last piece I would say is the applicability and sustainability of learning. So, learning, depending on how it's done, can sometimes feel like a sugar rush, and especially when those of us who are maybe working from home or busy doing work and don't necessarily have an opportunity to learn, go to a 1 or 2 day event and the learning is great, but then as soon as we're back, we revert to our old habits. The intention can be great there, but that can also breed a level of cynicism or disengagement or both, and even a tendency to view for future learning opportunities with suspicion. So the other important part is to make sure that what is being taught is actually being valued and being modeled, and that there are expectations to demonstrate or further hone those skills in practice, not just in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great insight. And you touched on some really interesting points there. I like how you said that learning can often feel like a sugar rush, because I think that's so true. It's that, you attend a seminar or workshop and you feel, oh, this is so great. I'm going to, use these skills. But then you go home and you do often get, like you said, just get caught up, back in your old habits and everything. So, I think that's a really good point. Okay, so what's the most effective way you've made upskilling feel like a true benefit and not just a mandate?
I want to give credit where it's due here because this was in place before I arrived in my current role. And it's one of the things I genuinely admire about Isaacson Miller. We have two separate development funds, one for professional development, which employees can use for any learning they find valuable, regardless of whether it connects directly to their current role, and one for educational development, which is oriented toward job-related certifications and degree programs. In both cases, the employee is in the driver's seat. We encourage people to make those choices in conversation with their manager, so that could be part of a great development conversation, ideally, and or with our learning and development manager who can suggest ideas and specific programs that reflect employees' goals, but the choice ultimately belongs to the employee, and that shift in ownership makes a significant difference in how people experience it. Sometimes employees can go through the day-to-day of their work without feeling empowered, and this is a true empowerment opportunity that fully benefits the employee. It benefits the organization as well. I think it's a differentiator. And I think the skills that people develop, whether they're tied to the job in the case of education development funds, or whether they simply broaden the employee's interest or knowledge or perspective, those always were down to the benefit of the organization, because employees are engaged in their learning and they are bringing their thoughtful perspectives to work.
It's so true. And it can be such a positive, that kind of circle, right? Loop, feedback loop, when you're feeling empowered and then you do better, but you care and it benefits the company too. So
Yeah.
definitely. How do you tie reskilling success directly to career progression and real engagement?
So, as a professional services firm, we have a career ladder with reasonably clear expectations at each level. So, employees have a line of sight into what growth looks like. Learning and tradecraft are also one of 4 pillars in our ongoing listening process, which means we're consistently trying to understand how people are developing their skills on the job. It's not just a nice to have, it's how we identify where we're falling short and where we can do better. So when employees see that we're paying attention to their growth and using that information, it signals our commitment. Now, in terms of how we tie reskilling to career progression and engagement more broadly, and not just from an organizational measurement perspective, the way that we make learning opportunities available, not just the ones that I mentioned, but a number of opportunities from ongoing to periodic, from virtual and serial to in person. It's really supposed to be not just about the learning itself, but about community, about dialogue, about getting experience from people who may have already been there, done that, and then applying that on the job. So all of those things should also contribute to how engaged people feel, excited to apply skills in their role, and also excited about the ability to continue developing in their career. So there's the organizational perspective and also the individual perspective. It should give us a sense of how our people are developing in alignment with our expectations for them as they rise through the ranks in the organization or as they spend time in role. And employees have a choice whether they choose to continuously get promoted or whether they want to be really good at what they do and continue to do primarily that work. And then we also want people to feel good just in general about working at IM.
Very true. And I like what you said about community. And of course, learning is more fun when you're doing it together, first of all, and when you're
Absolutely.
seeing, your peers and coworkers and other people interested and engaged too. And it's what I always say that, creativity builds more creativity. And it's kind of the same with, feeling that when you're learning one thing and someone else, gives you their take on it. And it's kind of like, oh, you really gives you new perspectives on things.
Absolutely. And one of the things we did this year that I'm excited about is we've made it easier for employees to spend their funds on group learning experiences. So the same rules still apply, the same allocations per individual still apply, but there are now processes where if, let's say, a group of 5 people want to take a course together, we can facilitate that for them logistically, and they can have the opportunity to learn together. And what I was talking about earlier, the risk of the sugar rush, the risk of going to the seminar where the skills are never applied or they quickly atrophy, the more people are learning together, the more likely it is that that will be reinforced through certainly informal mechanisms. And then if they choose to, they can continue to have formal or more established processes to continue learning together as well after the course.
Absolutely. And I think in a way, this brings us to the next question, which we've kind of answered in this part, is how do you measure cultural health through your upskilling initiatives? And do you see a clear connection there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, learning and tradecraft are among the areas we measure as part of our listening process, and they function as a real barometer of organizational health. My view is that an organization that genuinely invest in people development is a healthier one that doesn't. It's also a signal about intent. So when a company commits to helping people build skills over the long term, it's communicating that it wants people to stay and grow, not just perform a function until something changes. So I think that investment is not just beneficial in the here and now, but it is beneficial to both the individual and the organization over time, and that reflects our commitment to developing and retaining our people, which I think is hugely impactful from a cultural standpoint.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's one thing to, you know, tell your employees or say to people, that, oh, you're valuable, but to actually show it, like you said, with this intent, and that, you're really devoted to, their skills, and, keeping them. And it does create that positive feedback kind of loop, where you feel valued, so you want to be there, so then you want to do better, and all of that, it relates, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's one game-changing move CHROs must make in 2026 to lead the reskilling revolution?
Yeah, I think it's really important for CHROs to build what I call the learning and performance flywheel. So, in most organizations, learning and performance management operate in parallel, but they don't actually inform each other. So, people learn what the organization assigns. Maybe they're also thinking about their own development, and performance feedback often comes too infrequently or too late to shape anyone's development decisions, especially if you think, as I do, that learning should be a continuous process. If we're focused on development and growth, it shouldn't just be something we think about once a year or once a quarter, but on an ongoing basis, because learning can take place in many forms. It can be reading an article, it can be talking to someone, it can be developing a mentoring relationship. And these are all things that people can do all the time. So when learning and performance are disconnected, there's the opportunity to lose a lot of value. One of the things I've observed in industries like logistics, manufacturing, and energy, which are all a little bit more, hands-on type organizations, certainly in the front line, is that organizations that have real-time operational data and supervisors who are paying close attention to how the work is getting done and the outcomes can have meaningful conversations about what's working and what isn't at the next morning's stand-up meeting. So that's instant feedback. But that's still aspirational for many companies, even in those industries. And it's genuinely harder in environments where observation is a little bit more complex and feedback isn't instantaneous. But creating the mechanisms that allow learning and performance to continuously inform and reinforce each other is a huge opportunity for CHROs to really add demonstrable value to the organization. It can be the difference between just having a sense that something is wrong and needs to be fixed versus being able to demonstrate pretty rapid change in how certain things are being done or being accomplished, or in identifying the need for processes to change, just as a couple of examples.
That's so interesting. And I think it definitely makes sense, and it builds momentum, and I think it's a way to keep growing and learning better if you're getting that feedback right away, and then you can move on, you can build on that. Versus, if you're waiting too long, like you said, you're not hearing anything, and then you kind of lose that motivation too. So,
Yeah. And it also can change how performance management is experienced. You may have had some conversations about this already, but performance management is something that virtually no organization feels good about, and no employee nor manager likes. So if performance discussions become just something that happens continuously and help people understand how they can improve and develop without feeling like they're always so high stakes, or awkward or formal or tied to compensation or many of all of those things, suddenly performance dialogue becomes very different than how it is experienced in many organizations. So building that flywheel can have that additional benefit, that really benefits learning, growth, and outcomes in the immediate as well. And that, I think, is the most important element.
Absolutely. And it makes that performance feedback not so intimidating, if it's not just coming, on this one big day and you're nervously anticipating it, but when it's just a normal part of work, of learning, of feedback, and then you actually will apply it better because you're not so, thinking, oh no, what is this? Is kind of like, okay, so that's today, but maybe tomorrow and my next one will be a little different. So I just think that obviously contributes to the culture too.
Yep, it also can be applied in a team setting and not just individually as well. So sometimes if people feel intimidated by feedback, there are ways to provide feedback where you're encouraging everyone on the team to grow in a particular way. So employees don't necessarily feel singled out, like, oh, this is about me, or I did something wrong. So it's one of the reasons I really like that stand-up model. Somebody could notice something's a little bit off. They can bring their employees together. They can have a 5-10 minute meeting, or they already have that, and they can just drop this as a topic into that meeting. And, in a very, minor, low-key, low-stakes way, it's just been shared with the whole team. So the whole team is aware, alert, and as they go start their shift or do their work, it's top of mind for them.
So true. It's a little more informal, but likely more productive and more valuable. So, and then you can bounce it off your peers too then and say, what did you think of that? And how can we both, take this feedback and use it? So I love those ideas. Okay, so this brings me to my next question, which is SHRM predicts AI-driven real-time upskilling as a big retention driver. How are you using personalized learning to boost engagement scores?
Yeah, so I'll be candid. We're not trying to boost engagement scores in the sense that the engagement score is a reflection of how we're doing. And we're really focused on how we are supporting our people. And then hopefully the listening scores and the listening data follow. So what we are doing is investing in people's actual learning aspirations, not what we've decided they should aspire to, that we do complement individual learning opportunities with organization-wide and group learning. So it's a mix of both, which I think is the ideal, because there are some things that it is important for everyone to know, and it is important to have a perspective on what people need to learn and not just entirely leave it up to them, because for some people that can also feel very pressurized, and sometimes people are in more, sometimes I think about it as inbound versus outbound. Outbound is, I know I want to learn something and I'm focused on it and I'm going to make it happen. Inbound is, I'm really busy, but if there's a good learning session, I'll take 30 minutes out of my day, or maybe I can't take 30 minutes out of my day, but I'll watch it. And now with the benefit of all the playback tools that we have, I can even watch it at 2x if I didn't have 30 minutes, but maybe I have 15 at the end of the day. I do a lot of my listening to podcasts and webinars at 2x because sometimes I don't have that time. Yeah, I think the other thing I'd say, because you talked about AI, is AI can add tools and guidance to the learning process, and I think there is definitely potential there, but we're not interested in taking humans out of the loop. Partly because we have, a lot of the work that we do is very client focused and high touch. And as an HR, or as we call it, people and culture organization, we also like to be high touch in how we interact with our employees, and specifically how we relate to them around their own development. So the relationship between a person and their development, it is very personal, and something that I think if we fully automated it, we would be losing a lot of the nuance and dialogue that can drive great development conversations and great development decisions.
Exactly. Us humans are still very valuable. So this is kind of goes into the next question. How can real-time listening and AI sentiment insights make upskilling more personalized, inclusive, and a true driver of career growth and engagement?
Yeah, well, just like we want learning to be continuous, real-time listening is also important as well.
Mm,
Annual or periodic surveys have a role, but they're a snapshot in time. And sometimes, even by the time the data is collected and analyzed, it can feel a little bit dated in that regard. So, listening needs to happen through multiple channels and on an ongoing basis. And that means both live conversation and electronic tools. The only note of caution I'd add on the electronic side
mhm,
is that employees shouldn't feel like they're being tracked and monitored versus being genuinely heard, because that can create some suspicion.
mhm.
It can create a fear of surveillance. So the goal is to build avenues where people can surface what they're struggling with or what they need to learn in ways that feel safe and responsive. And every organization, that's going to look a little bit different. Some organizations are very pointed about um, you have the opportunity to share this confidentially, and some are equally pointed about if you have something that needs to be said and heard, you should put your name to it, unless it is something that requires such confidentiality because it is about another person, or because it's more of an employee relations issue and needs to be handled through sensitive means. So finding the way to listen that matches the organizational culture, both current and aspirational, is really important as well. And when organizations get that right, they can respond in developmentally or in whatever way is appropriate in something closer to real time. And that is when upskilling starts to feel like it is connected to someone's feedback, that needs are being addressed as they are surfaced. And like we are approaching something like the flywheel, with which learning is being reinforced by feedback and what we learn.
So interesting. Well, this has been a learning session for me too. So thank you, Shari. Your
Oh,
insights were, really practical, very inspiring too. So,
thank you.
I really loved your insights. And it's clear that upskilling in 2026 isn't just about programs. It's about real-time listening, AI sentiment, genuine care, and turning feedback into growth that people actually feel. And that's exactly where CultureMonkey helps with real time listening, AI sentiment analysis, and the tools to make every learning moment personal, inclusive, and powerful. Thank you so much for joining us, Shari. And thank you to
Thanks.
everyone watching and listening. And Shari, before we say goodbye, how can our audience connect with you if they'd love to keep the conversation going?
LinkedIn is always the best way, so please find me there. I am somewhere between an occasional and frequent poster. I like to share some of my takes on things that I read. I'm occasionally on a panel or two, and then I always love to talk to people about their careers, and sometimes even complete strangers find me and ask if they can have a career conversation. And I always like to make myself available to do that. So find me on LinkedIn, and I look forward to having some interesting conversations that stem from that.
That's a great invitation, and I probably know people who will definitely take you up on that, as will I. So, thank you again, Shari, for your time and your amazing wisdom. To all our listeners, thank you for being here, and of course, don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe. That's a wrap for this episode of Culture Club X, powered by CultureMonkey. Until next time, I'm Darcy, signing off.